Blakey and Tux, they're talking Cardiff City and some other stuff. Blakey and Tux, Dolly asked the questions on Blakey's Bootroom. Will always be blue.
Hello, welcome to another Blakey's Bootroom. We're talking Cardiff City. I'm Gareth Rogers, with me Nathan Blake and Steve Tucker, as ever. We're the day after the Seven-Side Derby. And what a firecracker it was, Steve Carr.
I only woke up
sarcasm in your voice there.
I woke up a few moments ago after it. I'd spent all last week writing reams and reams about how the Seven-Side Derby was neglected, and it was, you know, it was one of the big games, and I was proven completely wrong. Incredibly dull. not as people would say, not for the first time, but dull. Poor performance from Cardiff all round. I thought, apart from obviously from the obvious, from David Marshall in goal and probably defensively, maybe the centre halves, but going forward, absolutely clueless. Again, and Bristol City should have won by probably about 2-0 would have been a fair result. But for Marshall and some fantastic saves, so deeply disappointing. It felt like a real step backwards for Cardiff. Look, if we're not going to have this whole show go into like a trough of depression and negativity.
Well, it usually does.
Well, yeah. I don't know why this should be any different. But if it's not to do that, let's say it was a bad day at the office.
Okay, a few people have said that. I mean, he says bad day at the office. He's already said dull. And what was the other? Dull,
turgid.
Yep. Well, anything to add to that?
He probably enjoyed it knowing him, you know what he did.
No. I didn't go down. I watched it on TV, and you're able to.
You didn't turn over and watch like Coronation Street or anything.
No, Emmerdale.
You're an Emmerdale man, are you?
I was okay, man. No.
Sorry.
I just thought it was way below standards, I think. Performance, but I think there's reasons behind that. I don't think it's as simple as saying you just go out there and, you know, it was were they bothered or were they, you know, it's a derby match, of course you're bothered. You go into every game bothered, you want to win. That's just in your psyche. I think watching the game on TV was pretty good. You're able to see, really highlight what the problems are. And for me, I think if anyone who watches it again would be able to see some of the points.
Watch that again?
Yeah, but if you're trying to
glutton for punishment,
rather than just sit as saying like they were rubbish and it was like it was poor performance, blah 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 blah. There's reasons behind it, and I think if you look at how Cardiff pressed the ball all over the pitch, watch the game and you'll see that they find it very difficult to get close, put pressure on the ball, which stops Bristol playing forward passes. Now, in football, it's known as being in no man's land, right? And Len Ashurst was one of the first people to get on my case about it. You know, you're in no man's land. Either be in a position where you can go and close and threaten and do your job, or sit back and protect your goal. But don't be in no man's land. Now, what Cardiff, a lot of the time, they're in the in-between. They're not high enough to press the ball properly. They're pressing it, but, you know, it's pretty lethargic, yeah? So they're not in a position to press the ball. All over the pitch, this is mind. Hence why I think Bristol had 30-odd attempts on goal, something like that, 10 on target, something like that. So they're not high enough to press the ball, which then makes your back four or your defence drop, right? So second half, City was so deep, it was incredible. And if you looked at the last like 10, 15 minutes, they couldn't get out. And there was one spell where it was like watching Bristol in training. They were just doing these little tiny pop passes, and you know, and the crowd, you could hear the crowd saying, "Look, get into them, tackle them," but they couldn't, because you're so deep. You've now decided, well, we're just going to protect what we got. We're not going to concede them. We'll try and hit them on the counter, but you can't hit them on the counter because you haven't got enough pace up front with Amiobi aside. So what happened was they just kept dropping deeper and deeper and deeper, weren't able to put pressure on the ball early at any point, which then enabled Bristol City to gain more and more and more confidence. They knocked it about more, and in the end, Cardiff probably starting position were probably 10 yards outside their own box in the second half, which you're just too far away from goal. And then the distance between your back four and your strikers was sometimes, like, they're 10 yards outside the box, they're 10 yards over the halfway line. It's just, you know, it just doesn't work. It's work that needs to be done on the training ground. It is coaching. I don't care what anyone says. That's work that, you know, people say, oh, press the ball, and they think pressing the ball is just something that, or everyone just runs around. You know, there's a tactic to it. You know, it has to be worked upon day in, day out in training, so everybody knows where they're going. The two fullbacks for Cardiff need to do more, need to do way more. There was one incident in the first half where the ball's gone into Noon. Noon's got it, run over the halfway line, cut inside, and Peltier has actually made a run round the outside of him. One of the only times he did, but he made a run, but he didn't like command it at all.
Right.
And what Noon's done then is try to come inside and clip a ball over their midfielder to whoever was playing on the left for Cardiff. I don't know who it was.
Whittingham.
Might have been Whittingham. It was on the left hand side, and it got intercepted and they broke away, and then they almost broke into Peltier's space down the right. Now, you know, fluidity, game understanding, these two players, Noon and Peltier, should be striking up a partnership. And if Noon's only thought should be, I'm either playing off my striker or I'm playing off my fullback, yeah, or I'm going to get at them myself. So there's when you break it down, when you actually, and that was a good thing about staying home last night and watching it, you're able to break it down and see the reasons quite blatantly to me why they are ordinary.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Ordinary is a
They're
good word.
ordinary. They're not special in any way, shape or form. We're just ordinary at the moment.
Do you think Rowles is missed? It looks a little.
I don't think it matters.
With Whittingham out,
I don't think it matters,
doesn't it look a bit
Tux. I
unbalanced,
don't think it
though?
matters, to be honest
Well,
with
James
you.
has brought up that exact same point. He was talking about the lopsided three in the middle. It does look a bit strange, doesn't it? What are your thoughts? I mean, is Slater gone with this for a while now, this lopsided midfield where, you know, Noon is almost allowed
Three
to
and
be
a high
winger.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or three and a high left.
So Peltier doesn't know, does he bomb on with? Is Fabio's given license to go as far up as he likes?
To me, it's saying you want to change. To me, that says you want to change your structure of your team. You want to change the way you set up, but for some reason, whether you've not got the tactical nous or wherever, you're not. But playing a lopsided midfield tells me you want to play a different system, but aren't playing it. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost an admission to
I
me.
don't understand why anyone would do it.
Right. So it's like an admission of, I'm not sure how to change from a 4-4-2 into a, whether it's a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2 or whatever. But like I've said before, in modern day football, you cannot adopt a straight up and down 4-4-2. No. You've got to be able to adapt. It's as simple as that.
Slade said after he was asked about, has he been, obviously somebody had picked up on this and asked him, was he thinking about changing formation, and said quite rightly, no, you know, I'm quite happy with this setup. But,
Let's talk about one of the other things Slade said, which we've written about today, spoke about before the show. Is this thing about they were definitely up for it. I mean, Blakey says yes, they were, but then describes them as lethargic.
Yeah.
You asked the question last night. You obviously feel.
Well, I it's not so much that I thought maybe Cardiff lacked passion. I mean,
can I just say?
I agree with Blakey on that. In that it's not as if you're gonna.
If they're in the wrong position, starting position, that's why it looks so bad. Yeah. Because it's different, and it sounds crazy because you think, well, they should know what they're doing, and they should, but that's why as footballers we're coached the same thing week in, week out, day in, day out. The only thing that changes is the systems. Yeah, and where you're stood on the pitch. So if I'm playing in a 4-4-2 and I'm a left back, I know I'm going to be within the final third. If I'm playing in a 3-5-2 and I'm the left wing back, I know I'm probably 10, 15 yards further forward, my starting position. Do you understand what I mean? So at the moment, I think it's more of a system and a tactical problem more than they're not trying or they don't want it.
Well, your old teammate Jason Perry said almost exactly that. This one, it can look like they're not trying, but it's basically because they're running out of ideas.
Well, I think because Bristol City, as you say, probably they were set up in that 3-5-2 that they got and looked more comfortable with it. That gave the impression that they were more up for it. You know, they were bombing on, as just Blakey said. Cardiff were dropping deeper and deeper, and I think it gave the impression that there was more passion there. But you know, I still think that Cardiff could have, you know, shown a little bit more. Could have had a bit more kind of oomph about them. There was something lacking. They were underpowered.
It's difficult as well. I felt sorry for like Gunnarsson. I know like Gunnarsson's come into the fray, and I just know by just looking at the past 3 or 4 months, he hasn't had game time.
Yeah, we've spoken
and he's
about
played in like probably the 21s here and there.
Well, Borough was
now
his
what
first
you're asking him to come up and step up into Middlesbrough and Bristol City, top of the league, and a
the two
and
games
a
we
derby.
targeted a month ago as
Right,
the big ones.
you know, you're asking him to, mate. He's not going to be able to step that up. He's simply, you know, there's a couple of times he dribbled, lost the ball, and then he had to foul because. And
I lost time. I lost time. It's funny you should mention that. I said to that somebody next to me, crikey, if he loses the ball again and then trying to reclaim it, foul someone, he's going.
He's so frustrated. Like, he's so frustrated because he can't adjust. No, wait. He can't adjust to the pace.
Hands are cold.
He can't adjust. Warm hat. He can't adjust to the pace of the game. It's too quick to go from
even though he played
under 21 football. Yeah, chuck in the other. You need to be playing. Yeah. It's like when you go off for 6 weeks pre-season and come back.
You've got to have guys on the bench in reserve, like Rolls is injured, ready to step in. Whose fault is that? You know, we say it's a squad game. You know, we can't sit here and say a guy Rolls is injured, a guy is suddenly thrown in for his first start against Borough, and he's not ready. Then for me there's something fundamentally wrong.
No, I'm not talking about ready. I'm not talking about mentally ready. I'm talking about physically.
Well, no, that's okay. Physically or mentally.
He's not be able to get the games under his belt. This is just.
Is that a problem with reserve football?
And one thing I know all the players will hate me for. I'm going to say it because I remember people who say it when I was playing. We hated people who said it, but they are not fit enough to win the championship.
Right.
Simple as
that.
Fit
as in running around the physically.
They can't close the ball at the tempo, and they can't break at the tempo.
Well, this was Slade's
so whether
they've
now got pace in their team, and to me they're not fit enough.
Well, that's
one thing you can say about Marky McCoy's team. Go back. They weren't the most dynamically, you know, great players right. They had a very good squad of players, but there were other teams in the championship with as much ability. What they were fitter.
You could argue they're more talented now.
They were fitter than everybody though. They played at a tempo which no one else could cope with.
Last night Cardiff looked tired, didn't they?
Right, and when you look up past February,
there were so many games under Mackay where there was like a war of attrition and suddenly bang, you know, they'll come away.
Yeah,
a bit like we talked about at Preston. They get into that kind of game, but the difference with Mackay's side, they get the 1-0 and they come away like, well, okay,
because of their fitness levels. And that's what it's down to.
That's the difference this time.
And look, boys, I'm not saying like get out there and do more running, but you're going to have to find a way to get more running. Yeah.
Well, Tux, I want to pick up on Gunnarsson because you gave him 4 out of 10. I mean, that's quite scathing. You know, what was it that disappointed you so much? I just felt there was the usual energy and all this, but I just don't think it went anywhere for him. I don't think he made an impact on the game. Don't you think he was a step behind, though? Yeah, he was off the pace.
And that's to me, that says more than anything, you've not played enough. You're not playing enough.
But Blakey, what's the problem there? I mean, you say he's not... It's hard to explain.
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, Tux. It's like I always say. It's like going away. You end of the season. Everyone leaves. Whatever has happened. You come back pre-season. It's only been 4 to 6 weeks. When you're dribbling with the ball pre-season, first week or 2 weeks, your touch is rusty, you overrun it, what you expect to happen doesn't happen always. You think, I usually control the ball without actually looking at it, and then all of a sudden the thing pops up in the air and you think, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, you just off kilter a bit. And I think I know he's played in international games, but they're, you know, two games in 4 days and then nothing for 3 months. It's difficult, mate. That's all I'm saying. Whether or not...
Does the problem lie then with
Well, you've got to give him more games while he's playing, isn't it?
But is this under... You know, I think... I can't remember when it was, but years back, do you remember when the reserve football was abandoned?
Yeah, that's a big thing.
You know, because you used to have the league and all that.
It's a big thing. It's a big thing.
And that went... And there was a lot of murmurings there, people going, hang on, our players coming back from injury or on the free... Going to get... And then they made it so you can have 3 or 4. Yeah, you can have 3 over 21.
But I'm telling you, under 21s is an extension of under 18s football. That's all it is.
Rather than
it's
the reserve.
Not man's football.
The reserve game. The reserve. When you had the proper reserves, that was more of an adjutant to the first team.
Yeah. You know, there was one last night, Man City against Chelsea under 21s was on before the Cardiff game, and that was a good standard. But neither of those two teams you'd expect to beat Cardiff or Bristol. They'd just be too physical. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, for all their skill.
Yeah.
And that's...
I just think it's worrying when you've got Blakey sat here, and I agree with him anyways, when you say a guy like Gunnarsson is coming into the side when called one and is not ready.
Yeah.
He needs to be...
He should be ready.
What I'm saying is...
He should be hitting the ground running and be ready.
You can't pick him up and... like when you say in squad, you can't pick him up and drop him in out of the blue and then pick him up and take him out. You got to say, right, there's 20 minutes here, there's 10 minutes there, there's a half hour there, you know, we're going away somewhere to Burnley, we need to keep a clean sheet, you play 90 minutes, you know, that's utilising a squad system. At the moment, it's like, there's not a lot of thought process gone in if he's come from where he's been in the wilderness to playing in two major games, you know, Middlesbrough and Bristol. And I think Middlesbrough, the 1-0, I think it hides a multitude of sins, you see, because you're able to say, oh, well, we won.
So let's talk about the team that Slade selected then. I mean, on the back of that Middlesbrough game, Middlesbrough win, which was a good win, he's kept the same 11. I mean, you've said it papered over cracks all. Was he right to do so?
Well, no, because I mean... I didn't see the Middlesbrough game. I know
here's Blakey's expert opinion.
But, you know, listening to it and watching the highlights of it, no, mate, it's always easy to sit and say it, but also I think like some of the problems that are clearly evident to see, you think, well, hasn't anyone else seen it? And when you adjust things, I'm not saying like obliterate it, but you just slightly adjust things here and there to make yourself stronger.
Because he had a fit.
You've got to learn from your mistakes quickly.
You could have thrown Joe Rolls straight back in.
In hindsight, I would have brought Rolls on from the start.
Instead of Gunnarsson.
Yeah.
But then...
And move Whittingham back inside.
You know, if Gunnarsson's in now, what I'm saying is he's got to, over the next 3 months, he's not playing every game, but he's got to play, keep him match fit.
But I tell you what, look at Ipswich on the weekend, Rolls will start, I guarantee you.
Well, and the other one a lot of people talk about is Kenwyn and how much they're missing him.
Massive.
I would say, I haven't looked at this stat, but anyone who can look at stats and all that, look at Mason's goals.
Exactly.
And see who was his partner when he scored.
I'm just getting a piece together now for online, and I say exactly the same thing. I said, Kenwyn's only got 2 goals this season. I say only this season. Remember that little spurt Mason had? You know, 4 in 5.
When Kenwyn came into the free.
The space he was getting, the areas he was getting to score those goals, that was because, and it's the old classic of Blakey's, you've got 2 centre-halves going out, looking at Kenwyn going, oh, right, okay, well, you better, let's do that. He's so busy thinking about him, what he's doing is pulling people out of position, and that's not happening. That's why since Kenwyn has gone, how quiet has Mason been?
Yeah.
He has barely, I don't think he had a shot. Well, I say he didn't have a shot. Nobody had a shot.
You've got to recognise that. As the coach, you know, let's be fair. There's like Martin.
To be fair though, he has been injured, by the way. I mean, it's not like he's been dropped.
But you've got to recognise it as coaches and management staff. There's 3 ex-players and a manager. You know, you've got to recognise that.
I think the plan is so simple in that they think will bring Ravel in and he'll do what Jones does.
Listen,
but he can't. He doesn't.
can't.
I know he doesn't
You know,
do it.
I feel a bit for Alex Ravel
gonna
because I
ask
feel
you
like he you know, people go and like I just say he's not going to get you 20 goals in the championship, in my opinion, right? And I don't think his level of quality is high enough to, you know, become an assists champion then, or do you know what I mean? Last night was a prime example. What's he best at? Air, in the air. Got battered last night. You know what I mean? The big man at the back, what's his name? Big centre half? I forget his name anyway. He's dead centre. He's the captain. Hardly lost a header. Now, you know, you're not going to see Alex rear down the left or down the right, take a full back on and whip a cross in, or, you know, get it in the feet, turn a defender, play a 1-2 and go. And, you know, you just, to me, you've got to find a solution to that problem there.
Yeah.
If Cameron's not
Ravel
playing,
did much better in the air against Borough than he did against Bristol. I thought he looked
but
decent at times.
you can't just say that these days. Like I can still jump in the air.
Hey, I don't believe that for a
You know what I
second.
mean?
I don't believe
you
that
need
for a
more to
second.
your
I
game
feel
in the
for the guy
championship.
because it's not his fault. He is
What he is, and he's a Trojan. He'll work and work. I love that part about him. But I just, as the spine of your team, those ones you pay most money to, your goalkeeper, centre half, centre mid, centre forwards, they got to be quality, mate. If you're getting to the Premier League, if that's your aim, you know what I mean. If you look at the other end of the pitch, Bristol City had the big fella up front, who I would say is fortunate to be in that team, and then they had this lad here who was a player, mate. He looked like a player. You know, a lot about him.
He did. Okay.
I mean, you can only say that Cardiff looks so much a blunt force up front without Cameron Jones.
Right. So just moving on slightly, I mean, a similar sort of theme, but Mike wants to talk about the atmosphere. I mean, he says...
What atmosphere?
Well, he says the atmosphere was good, and that goes against...
Who does?
Mike Jenkins. And that goes against everything else I feel, and saw on the TV. Obviously. You were there.
There was a bit of singing.
For a derby...
I thought it was better than it has been, but then it'd have to be better because it was so bad recently, with a low crowd.
Yeah.
There was a few
it sounded
more
like
on
a
the
reserve game or a 21 game against Borough.
A lot of the atmosphere must go down to Bristol City. I mean, they were. I know it's sometimes easier as an away fan like that, particularly in a derby.
They were singing on TV. It was really like a library. Did you hear that chant?
Sounds like your ground's too big for you, which is hard to argue with a little bit at the minute.
I don't think it's too big for us. There's obviously a problem where, like on the back page today, youngsters can go in free. Do you know what I mean? I haven't read through it entirely, but they clearly know there's a problem. Now, what I keep saying, you know, if you think it's as simple as that, youngsters can go free, you think it's just there'll be money, fans will have money issues, but the majority of fans were paying far more in the Premier League. So it's not a money thing for the majority. There's obviously things that they're not happy about the club. And as the club, it's not for us to sit here and dissect the club. They should know, right, they're our fans. Yeah, I know what the problem is. He can tell you what the problems are. You know what the problems are. But the club don't seem to be able to put a finger on it.
I'll tell you what, last night, if you were in a pub last night in Cardiff, you know, in your
you were dry and you were warm and you had a pint and you enjoyed the game
you were
on
a lot
TV.
You were a lot happier than I was, that's for sure. But B, if you hadn't been one of those stayaways who hadn't been down for ages and you just happened to be in the bar watching, you would be like, crikey, have I made the right decision? I ain't paying to watch that.
Well,
this in any shape or form. So it was a live TV game in the worst kind of...
So there's many problems, Gaz. You know, what I don't like is when you see that sort of thing. You know, kids can go in free. That's what the problem is because
what have you got against kids going in for free?
You know, it's you know, great.
Okay,
but do that when
Blakey,
things are on a roll and you're going good.
Right now, then, okay, you say about that. Right now, you're in the marketing department at Cardiff City. I can't imagine you in there actually, but you imagine you're in marketing. You're having a brainstorming session. What do you bring to that part? What do you say? What would you say right now? This is how we. This is how we increase the
there's
gates.
things like you can change the manager. That's out of my hands as the marketing department. That's a problem for
But
fans.
can the marketing department within their powers down there? Obviously they've done this with the kids. Is there anything they physically can, apart from let's bring in?
Like I said,
let's
you
get Pep Guardiola in to Pep. I mean, obviously this is pie in the sky. Is there anything practically that can be done?
Practically, right? Like I said, you can't change the manager because that's out of your hands. But that's one of the reasons why people won't go.
Okay,
you can agree or disagree.
You can't eradicate the red shirt.
You can't eradicate it.
No,
but
okay.
What I would say as a marketing or a person who works with a club, I'll go out or send out the chief executive and start going, I don't know, round the fans, major areas, and going on some forums and go and speak to fans and go and tell them what had happened, the reasons why it happened, and apologise for what happened, and assure them it's not going to happen again, and then explain to them where the future of the club is going. Nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. There's a vast amount of debt on the club, which was or wasn't, is or isn't going to be converted. We never know. But there's a vast amount of debt in the club, and your fan base is going south. So you clearly need to do something. So my first thing would be go and speak to the fans, front up, and go and speak to the fans instead of chucking out things which it's lazy. It's almost as if saying, it's just like, those are not, it's not the fact that they want free kids going in that's stopping fans at the moment going to the games. Yes. There's a major problem. They won't admit it. They've said, like I said to you before, Tux, head people at that club have turned around and said, well, all you do is cause trouble. You stir. No, we recognise there's a problem. We often have a difference of opinion. Yeah, he comes at it from one angle, I come at it from another. But between us, usually sometimes get a...
I thought you was praising.
Get a good conclusion.
It's always a
So for me, a marketing thing, first thing I would do, Tux, to answer your question,
no,
is
that's
go
interesting.
out. I would
That's a good
from the catchment area,
I can see that.
Put Albert.
That's
I'd
like
be straight out.
That's a bit like Sam and Mam sat on the old fruit machine in the local pub, wasn't it? Like saying this is going to be. Some of what was said.
And the other thing, going back to your time, was Rick Wright introduced the kids for a quid with the Echo tokens. That was massive.
Yeah.
And that is almost it's different. It's lazier in a way to say.
That's what I'm saying.
It's worse than to strike up a relationship to buy
it's like a slap in the face.
Yeah, you're collecting the tokens. That's part
I've been going for 40 years, and you think the reason I've stopped going is because kids can't go in for free.
No, I get that.
You're just totally overlooking what the problems are. Yeah. And listen, they can say what they like to me, Tux, whatever. They can say what they like, but the proof is in your fan base, and it ain't going south because of anything I've done or said, or what he's done or said, or the paper's written or said.
That's true. Well, I want to come on to David Martin in a minute, but before I do, we've got to discuss Russell Slade. I mean, it seems as though one bad game, but it was to that massive audience because it was on TV. Everyone's seen it. Now all of a sudden, the criticism of the manager has come back out. And to be honest, all the players I've spoken to have said the same thing, that he was outfoxed by Cottrell. So where does this leave him?
But how can you be outfoxed by someone who plays 3-5-2 often? Or practically all the time. That's like you heard Ian Holloway say to Cottrell last night, you've put your stamp, I can see you've put your stamp on this team. Yes, I understand exactly what he means, the way they play, a structure. Do you know what I mean? Your centre-halves have to play, simple as that. Your full-backs or your wing-backs have to push on. I could see that. I can't see the stamp that Russell Slade stamped then on the first team at the moment. I think that is what, I think it's 4-4-2, or 4-3-1-2, and it's not really. It's like I said, it's just ordinary. It's nothing. No one's excited about it.
This is what I mean. Holloway picked him up on it at half time,
right?
Saying the full-backs should be bombing on into that space left by the Bristol wing-backs going forward.
I think Peltier can do so much more because he's a physically good specimen and he's a good defender. So, he almost like, I'm gonna sit in a position, and this has to be encouraged by the coach and the manager, sit in a position where I kind of go forward, but I'm not really going forward with any sort of authority when I do go forward. And I'm not going forward that often. Do you know what I mean? And Fabio, the other side, Fabio's got the, what known as leather lungs in football. He can got an engine.
Yeah.
He should be up and down that flank, especially with Whittingham.
Yeah.
You're playing him obviously to get your full back round the back.
Yeah.
I would have thought,
Play that
because
killer
Witts
ball.
can't get in behind people.
No.
So
He can play the killer ball into somebody.
yeah, of course he can. He put on a sixpence. So
The situation with Slade is, as we touched on here before, in that there's a lot of people who don't like him and don't like, not mean as a bloke, don't like his brand of football and what he brings. So a game like last night is like,
it highlights everybody.
It does. You know, you
can't get
if
away
they're
from
winning
it.
and if they do it ticking over, even if the football's
Well,
not,
they'd be
you're kind
buried,
of like, well, hey, this is great. A performance like last night, you can guarantee across the pubs, across the valleys,
You're not
across
mugging
Cardiff,
anybody.
There were guys in bars now going, what did I tell you
wanna see what I got
about
to
Slade?
me?
Look at this rubbish. I told you that when he's not up to it. It was a license for all them again.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about David Marshall then. I mean, obviously, first thing to say...
Told you he'd bring those points back, and he lost in that.
That's
I
right,
told
you did,
ya.
yeah.
Didn't I tell you?
You did, and I think I was saying that day, saying...
Yeah, I know. Get him away.
Captain, yeah, we don't need him, yeah.
Unbelievable, mate.
You were trying to sell David Marshall. I can't.
Right, yeah, but anyway, he was fantastic, wasn't he? And almost the worst thing could have happened because he was in the shop window and he was live on Sky.
I mean, no, because of the Premier League season, that was like every game what you've seen last night. So they know he's an international. He's playing in Scotland. Everyone knows what he's got. You know, whatever reason, like I've said before, whatever the reasons he didn't move, I think were more down to him than anybody else.
Yeah.
And if he wants to, at any point, he got licensed that what he's got in his locker, what he's capable of doing, he can get a move to a Premier League
I
club,
think with a move for,
say.
I would imagine for a goalkeeper moving, faced with the move that he's potentially got to the Premier League, one thing you want to ensure is you're in the side, isn't it? You know, because you know what it's like.
Yes.
Right, you're an outfield player, you're on the fringes. There's always a injury or you know a change of formation or like a drop in. When you're a reserve goalkeeper, you just sat there.
10 years sat on the bench.
Yeah, you could be sat there forever, couldn't you?
Was
So
the lad at
that will be
Man City. He's been there for about 10 years.
Well,
sat on the
exactly.
bench.
You'll want to
Isn't he?
ensure it's the right move.
Which is right, is it?
Oh, yeah.
I seen him get off the coach on Shaw on Manchester
He's
Derby.
driving
and I
the
was thinking
coach
myself,
now. Isn't he? I would have
wow,
thought gotta do
he's
something.
still there.
But that's the one thing that will be crossing his mind.
But they said last night
amongst
actually,
other things.
they braced, the club are braced for a
Well, I
bid in
spoke to
January.
Slade, I spoke to Slade after and I asked him, and he said, you know, I said, are you expecting? He said, quite possibly.
So,
you know, we will.
He's probably
we say-
inviting it to get some transfer kitty to try and strengthen.
Well, this is the thing
But
now.
then do you? The question will
Is
be:
he a
do you
Rolls
trust?
Royce in a kind of Morris Minor body?
Do you
know,
trust
like
the
Rolls Royce
current
engine?
setup to go out and execute good players in the transfer market? Because, you know, for all said and done, Russell's last adventure into the transfer market hasn't turned out to be brilliant, is it?
No, in the fact that hardly any of his signs ever played.
Anyway, if you sold him for say 6-7 million or whatever he's worth, do those funds go back into team building anyway? You don't know
This is all the debate,
current
isn't it? I mean,
situation because they've spent nothing, have they?
No.
Nothing.
Well,
They didn't spend anything last summer, did they? Nothing. You know, they had Amiobi on a loan and
There's a
Shemi
Ajay
and I can't remember it all, but
yeah.
very, you know, you know, let's get to the nitty gritty. They don't spend any money on transfers anymore.
No, so if they get an offer of 5-6 million for Marshall,
What are you going to get with it?
is that?
It's
good
not
business?
enough. Listen, how much did the Bristol City pay? 2 or 3 million for the lad up front last night? What are you going to get? 2 players? Are 2 players going to? Well, if you get like Messi and Ronaldo, they'll change things. But
You get them for 5 million.
Are you going to get 2 players for 5 million quid that are going to adjust your season? It can happen, possibly, but you know, if they're that good a player, are they going to leave where they're at? So there's the possibility. I remember, you know, Arsenal taking Dennis Bergkamp from Inter Milan. You never would have thought that a player like that would be let go by a club like that, but they did, and the rest is history. If you can find
What
that.
the fans want to see is their billionaire owner spending a couple of million, now having got to this position where they're sort of flirting with the edges
But
of
see,
it.
this is where it comes back to the whole issue of, like I said, this headline, kids can go free. The problem, I'm not being negative or anything, but the problem is there for all to see,
He's being
right, that the fans, you're down to like 12, 13,000.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
not, like I say, that's a fact. That's not nothing that anyone else is doing them, but what the club is delivering. For me, yes, you've got a billionaire owner who's now saying, I'm not spending money as I was. And
Or
probably
he
because
hasn't said anything.
well, probably
Which is another
because
problem.
Hey, the
well,
proof is in the pudding. He's not spending anything.
correct.
He hasn't spent anything. He hasn't said why he hasn't spent anything.
Well, I think if you read in between the lines, I might be wrong, but trying to get into the mind of someone like Mr. Tan, you would probably feel aggrieved in one sense that what happened with Mackay happened in the way that happened with Moody and the signings and whatever, that side. And then he will feel that the fans of Cardiff City haven't appreciated what he's done for the club. So I always say the only way it's going to resolve itself is if he gets back into the club and they start to structure the club in a way that a successful football club is structured. You can't simply just say, yeah, there's some money,
Yes,
because you've got the wrong people spending money and it goes pear-shaped, as has been proved the case.
If Mr. Tan started the show love for the club again, do you think that would warm some of the floating voters back? If you saw him and...
He's the pinnacle. If he doesn't, things won't get better.
What if he left? Just
You'd
walk
hope
away.
that the next owner would be first and foremost a true fan of football,
But that takes on a massive
and a
debt.
fan of Cardiff City.
Doesn't matter how big a fan
If
you
he's
are.
not a fan of Cardiff City, you'd hope that he's got the best interests of the club and its history at heart. And like I said, all these owners like Aston Villa and people like that, they're now finding out it's not just about chucking money at it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to mix some of the old traditions with the new for a start, and you have to formulate,
Develop a club.
Yes, you've got to have a plan first
Training
and foremost.
facilities,
Right,
kids.
we still haven't got our own training ground.
You've got a
For the amount of
battleground.
money that's been spent, Cardiff not to have its own training ground, is a sin. Really, it's
Laughable.
crazy. It's
And then
crazy.
you've got a team 40 miles down the road who are in the
Who are just
Premier
killing
League.
you.
Yeah, and can pick any young player they want.
Yeah,
You'd think.
Just highlighting it highlights all the problems, 2 or 3 times bigger, because like you say, 5 years ago they were both in the Championship.
I
weren't
think we've gone into that trough, haven't we, gents?
I was going to say,
they?
somebody say about this not being negative at one point. I don't know what.
Yeah, but you shoot yourself in the foot when you say that, because what you're doing is you're actually giving the view of people, because this is how you see the club. If we sat here making things up, negative things, then you say, okay, you're being negative, but you can
We're only
only
scratching
talk
the surface,
about.
Blakey, aren't we? We're only
You can
scratching
only
the surface.
exactly. You can only talk about what's in front of you. I can't. What do you want me to do? Sit here and say, nah, 13,000, 15,000 for a 7-side derby. That's fantastic.
Mate, a series of
35,000. I think you look at
record low
Wales.
crowd.
Let me say this. Look at Wales and where they were
Yeah.
to where they are. That doesn't happen overnight. That has been a plan. People put in place, certain people I know, Ian Gwynn Hughes put in places,
Yep.
IG, to develop the whole thing on the field and off the field. And you get your just desserts. It's not rocket science. And it doesn't happen just simply by saying, here's a load of dough.
This is a good question from Nigel. I mean, sort of slightly more short-termist than that, but basically his words are, has Slade got the kahunas to get the central midfield and strikers City need? And do you think he's faced down Tan to go and get it? And which brings another question of, is that relationship another part
I
of the
don't
problem?
think. I mean, I honestly don't think Slade has got the opportunity to do that. I think he would love to go. We've been talking about this midfielder, this in general, or whatever you want to call it, and a striker. I think he would. He wants them. He looks at the side. Last night he came in and he was just like in the final third.
You tell me, he
could
wouldn't
tell
go and
he
get
would-
Kevin Nolan if he could,
He would, and he'd go and get a striker. And one thing, I just don't think the opportunity, because of the relationship with the hierarchy or their decisions on the club, I don't think that opportunity is there for him. I think he's been told no.
Just treading
Any
water.
other managers
go
you've
with
ever
what you
played
got.
under had that with a chairman or with an owner where they can't even have a conversation or make a request? Or
Oh, we don't know that though, do we? I thought they had a very good relationship.
It will be
as far as
intriguing.
I
I
was
think,
aware.
Ev. I mean, he's Tan's appointment, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's the big thing.
But he's on the other side of the
What
world.
will be fascinating is if they can stay where they are now or even higher, January.
Yeah.
Because that will give us a clearer indication about, particularly about Tan's
Well,
ambition.
And it's not just...
If they're fifth, hang on, if they're fifth come the opening of the transfer window,
Yeah.
and they go the whole of January, and and they need people, they don't push on, then you'd have to question the ambition really of actually a serious assault on it.
I think they can get a lot more out of the squad they've got.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's necessarily about, like I've said, what we lack is width, pace out wide. Yeah? And the front two, whether it's Kenwyn, Ravel and Mason and Kev, none of them are blessed with blistering pace. So get the pace out wide. We've got Amiobi, okay, he's not.
You could argue he's been underused.
You could say he's not performed at where they expect him to perform. You could say, well, stop using it as an impact. You say, but when he plays 90 minutes, he's not fit. So it's clouded around Amiobi. But for me, they definitely need pace wide to be able to get beyond. Last night you're playing against a back three.
I know.
You should, the striker's got to be able to, kill those centre halves for pace, really and truly. I mean, I just.
So then there's all that space.
Yeah.
Down the flank.
So often that was apparent. You could see that with the three there.
Massive holes.
And it's so very rare.
But if you haven't got pace to exploit it, then you can't.
So you say it could be
the quality of the ball into the box was absolutely abysmal. Far too often.
You say there could be an argument that Amiobi's underused. We'll make that argument. I mean, he was the star sign. He was this player with pace that they brought in.
He's been used in. I think he's been a bit unlucky. For a start, I mean, this is the thing Blakey always bangs on about you don't just come in and you're there, you're given 3, 4, 5 games. He's never had that. No. He's been in, I think, if I'm right, the two games he started, both been away. I think one at Rotherham, which was obviously compromised by that Marshall sending off and all that kind of thing. And then I think, was it away at Preston as well? Particularly, and I think that's the only 2 starts he's had. So, I think you could forgive him for feeling really aggrieved, and saying, well, look, when am I going to get a run in the side properly to start?
Surely that's the point of him being here.
Well, that's what everybody thought. I mean, what did we say in the summer? Right, the big summer sign in the summer. Okay, on loan, we got Amiobi. How is he going to fit? Yeah. So I think we sat on the show going, where's Slade going to play him? I don't think anybody said, I'll tell you where he's going to play him, on the bench.
Play him for 20 minutes.
That's what he'll do. He'll play him on the bench. So
he is the one player there who the crowd get excited about. He comes on and suddenly the dynamic changes. There's something else to worry about.
Well, I think last night as well, the classic thing with him coming on is, and substitution of Cardiff City, Sammy Amiobi. I think a lot of away fans are going, God, Amiobi was on the bench. What's he doing on the bench? Actually get that reaction, like, what's he doing? Well, how come he hasn't started? And they've started with these bunch. Well, surely Amiobi, you get that reaction there. So, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt I wouldn't say he's in danger of becoming a Wilfried Zaha, because that was an absolutely awful situation for Cardiff. But he's in danger of
you've got to ask yourself
totally underutilised.
Why a lot of players are coming to Cardiff and aren't performing. And the changeover of players over Cardiff over the last 2 years has probably been one of the highest in the Championship, if not the...
Oh, crikey, ins and
the
outs.
turnover of players. So you've got to ask yourself why so many players are coming.
Adeyemi up at Leeds now. I mean, he was superb.
They just come and the striker went to Bolton last year. Lafondra.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Why so many players are coming.
Even Velaconia scored a couple on the weekend.
That's what you need to ask yourself.
Where is he?
He's in Belgium.
He's in Belgium.
Yeah.
But
Have you Guerrero scored against Barcelona?
But that's the thing. I would say that play thing is. Often with loans, when you look at other clubs, there's a method behind the thing. You think, right, they get a few games, bring them back. You often get the feeling with Cardiff someone's they're like out to pasture just to get them away from the club. They're all out. Adeyemi and Lafon. They're out there
they're
just so like, right, okay, right. I don't have to think about putting them in the side. I can just. I
don't want those boys in the
let's
room saying
let's keep a small little group. They're somehow just out on a vacation. Go on. There's no real thought. Okay, with the
quality
exception of maybe
players.
Doyle, maybe, or whatever, but possibly. But sometimes it doesn't seem to be a real method behind what
They're all
what's-
quality players.
Exactly.
That's the worst. That's
You know,
the
I mean,
most frustrating thing.
Lafondra would walk into so many championship sides, but
Of course it. I mean,
Apart from Cardiff
Luke's
City, who
with a
actually
nice-
own him.
Luke's with a nice. Cardiff are in need of a player like Jordan Much. I mean, I think somebody like just get the ball and drive forward.
fit Jordan much if such a thing exists
that's-
that
that's-
often.
that's
It
true,
doesn't
yeah.
happen often enough.
That's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the kind of player we've been talking about a lot. I mean, we sat here in the summer going, when they're going to bring in this midfield, and they haven't.
So if let's say let's fast forward to January. If you're Russell Slade, what's the first thing you do? Do you assuming you're still the Cardiff manager, do you turn down all these bids for David Marshall and try and keep that together?
I
Or do
think
you?
it's out of his hands. mate.
That you're right, Blake. That is completely out of Slade's
I don't
hands.
think he has. I think that's part of the problem.
What's on
If
his
someone
Christmas
came
shopping
in with
list?
8 million,
Someone comes
I
in with
think
5
someone
million.
would come up to Slade. I
6
wouldn't say
million.
mention any names. Someone will come to Slade and say,
He's
"Oh,
going."
your keeper's gone." Don't mention any names, but somebody within that club would come up to Slade and tap on the shoulder and say, "You better start looking for a new
Just
keeper, or you
pace out
better
wide.
make Simon Moore."
Pace out wide, midfield general, striker, couple of defenders,
A couple of centre half. No,
a new keeper.
No, I keep saying, I honestly believe that the squad there now, like I started off by saying they couldn't press because they're often in the wrong position. Adjust that, and you will see the performance improve naturally. Yeah, just naturally. Improve that side, the pressing, the closing down, the shape, the not being so deep, too far away from strikers. Improve that, and you will get better results. Kid you not. I still think that the squad they got, is as good as most teams in the Championship. There's probably one or two that come down from the Premiership who, on paper, would have a better squad. But I wouldn't say there's too many out there.
What's your ideal 11 then, out of what's there? You see,
Oh,
you're
don't
always
even go there.
Christ.
I would be bringing people back and everything. It's just like
I mean, would you is the back four right?
well, I mean, it's that, I mean, the back four has been foisted on him, obviously through injuries, and but they're not
It lacks a
conceding
bit of balance.
goals.
It lacks a bit of balance. They're certainly not conceding goals.
Not
and that's-
conceding goals. I think that's that's not an issue.
But then they're not
really. And
scoring goals, so that's
That's the
you know
problem.
the fullbacks have a duty to do
Yeah.
both in the modern game. You know, I think if you look at someone like Tony Pulis, he defends with 4 all the time. Very rarely do the fullbacks go forward. That's why they keep a clean sheet, because you've got a goalkeeper at 4, and always maybe 1, sometimes 2. So they defend with 6 and attack with 4. Tony's kind of philosophy
yep.
is. Do you know what I mean? And at the moment, we're not doing either. That's my point. And I say we can get more out of the squad we got. There's no reason with the squad. Those boys, they know anyway. They know. And then that's when you look to your manager and your coaching staff, saying, look, I look at the team, look what we got. And right now, we're not set up to be running over teams, to be really attacking, killing teams. At the moment, we're not set up to defend and counter-attack, and we're not, high press and kill them and attack. So that's when the players will be looking now at the structure or the management staff saying, okay, whatever it takes, because that's what my attitude would be. If it means I'm not fit enough, if it means we need a better structure or a better strategy, whatever, listen, I'm prepared to do it to get myself another championship medal. Hell yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
There's a lot of criticism coming in for Whittingham. We spoke about him a lot. Obviously, he's been shunted out from centre to left. Bob coming in with a good comment saying
Robert.
Rawls, O'Keefe and Pilkington must be wondering how bad Whittingham has to be before they get in. I mean, you gave him a decent rating last night. You thought he was okay last night, didn't you?
Emmy, I was surprised that who came off for who played on the right? Nooney.
Yeah.
I thought Nooney was quite good last night.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I thought he was going to bring, when he brought the players on, I thought if you're going to take anyone off from the midfield, you'll take off Gunnarsson and Whittingham, I thought.
Well, Dekashwi was injured.
Yeah, so that's
he
one
had
of
to-
them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he left the other 2. He left them on, didn't he? So I thought Nooney was a bit unfortunate.
Late on.
Okay.
Because he's the kind of player as well, can nick you a goal.
Yeah, well, as he
and
has done.
I mean,
As he
so
has
was
done.
Witts. Witts can. But Witts was playing very deep last night.
Is he an automatic pick in this team with all his experience
Nah, I
and
don't
skill?
think anyone playing is an automatic pick at Cardiff at the moment, except for Marshall.
Yeah.
I think Marshall would be my only automatic pick.
So obviously, Dicker Choi's injured. So Whittingham's not an automatic pick. Obviously, Gunnarsson is there or thereabouts. You've got Rawls. He comes straight back in, definitely, or
I don't
I
know.
think he
you
will.
think
I
like
think he
wait, you
will.
think like Gunnarsson? I mean, you know, I'm not his greatest fan, but you know, this is what I say: don't miss a trick. He's just qualified for the European Championships.
yeah.
In his head, going away is probably more enjoyable than being
without a doubt.
on his day-to-day. Now,
doubt.
how can I get how he's feeling from his Icelandic trips? How can I get him to bring that back to Cardiff and start giving that? Because that adds
you
to
know
my
he's got a
squad.
quality player.
Do you know what I mean? And I just don't think, sometimes I think so much is just overlooked and ignored. And, you know, because, as a player, you've got to get inside.
midfield when in a championship winning season.
Well, yeah.
So
I was just
he's
thinking
got
of
it.
him and Whittingham. You know, that's almost your default setting. It should be because they've played so much together.
Together, correct. But they've not got the legs
Yeah, that's
I
together.
think Rowles
So it's a lot
has-
to-
Yeah, and that's what I
Rowles
was
has
saying.
forced the issue.
I would
yeah.
never have sold Adiemi.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He's not being sold, has he?
on loan, he's on
I
loan,
would
isn't
never
he?
have
But
let
that
him go out.
They've got the option as well at the end of the year loan.
To
so
buy him,
probably
yeah.
will be sold.
Right. Okay.
And also, he's a main player for them, even though they're struggling. Yeah, so you've got Whittingham, Gunnarsson, Rawls. It all seems like a bit of a muchness to me. But, yeah.
It's difficult.
It's
mate.
definitely
It's
not a
difficult.
balance in midfield that you're
It's
looking
difficult.
for.
No.
You need more pace.
And what about up front then? I mean, we say Kenwyn obviously comes back.
I think Kenwyn and
Kenwyn and
Mason,
Mason.
picks itself.
I think so, yeah.
But then there's nothing really. What's behind that? I mean,
Well, exactly. Well,
Makeda.
we're finding out what's behind that. They haven't scored
What's
a
happened
goal.
to Makeda?
still
He's
injured.
coming back next month from a
Okay.
back injury.
And Lafondra
Just,
is away.
Fondra's in
back.
exile in Siberia,
Well,
or
Fondra won't come
Wolves.
Yeah,
as
that's
we
it.
put it.
So
Yeah,
they've got to buy in January. Haven't they? From what we've been through there, they're well short.
I think he would bite your hand off, Slade, for another striking option in there, a quality one.
But
But I mean,
the
again,
problem
But
with
when
the
he had
money
money,
he's
he
got.
bought the boy. No disrespect to Doyle,
Doyle
but
and Ravel.
you know what I mean. That would worry me. I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, you're saying you need money. You know, when you've had money, you went down and brought in. You know, you want a bit of spark, man. Do you know what I mean?
would
You know,
it be
is any of those players? Would,
Yeah,
he,
yes,
was
yes.
you honestly expecting either of
Doyle
those two
cost,
players?
Dale cost 750 grand. Doyle cost, yeah.
Dale?
Oh, Dale, wouldn't that be great?
Bring back Carl Dale. Now there's a guy who could score you a goal. That's
Yeah.
definite. But Doyle, I think, would it be interesting to see Slade with the money that Mackay or Solskjaer had, or would it be a nightmare?
I think Blakey's just answered that.
That's
You
it.
can
Be
put that on the
careful-
website
Be
as a
careful
question.
what
that
you
could,
wish for.
that could
you
be
know?
the question of the
Be
day. Would
careful
you
what
give
you-
Russell Slade
Does
a
he
transfer kit?
deserve
But
to have
then
millions?
isn't this a massive issue then? I mean, if we're seeing the owners genuinely thinking along these lines,
Well, he said we're not. He gave it away, didn't he? We're not shopping at Harrods anymore.
Yeah.
We're in thing.
it.
That was quite obviously a directive from above saying you
We
can
were
forget
never at
you-
Harrods, mate.
You
by
can
the
get.
way.
You can get.
Can I just say that?
We
were never at
Hang on,
Harrods.
Andreas
Cardiff's-
Cornelius.
by
was-
Cardiff's
We were,
standards,
we were never at Harrods,
We
mate.
were.
Yeah.
Mate,
There's
you
only
keep
a few
forgetting-
teams that shop at Harrods in
keep
our
forgetting-
in the Premier League.
Gary Medell's ended up on the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or, isn't he?
Yeah.
God, what a player.
Wait, we were at like Fortnum and Mason or some. What's that? Harvey Nichols. Somewhere quite nice.
So anyway, I
if
mean,
not
it's-
Harrods.
No, I'd say with
All the
Debenhams.
places where you get your
shop
clobber
the-
from,
We
Blake,
shop at
all-
Debenhams, you know.
It's
Pound
not
note.
all. It's not all doom and gloom anyway. Eighth in the table.
It's not doom and
3
gloom.
points off the playoffs.
You want to see winners, don't you?
Ipswich and Leeds away in the next week. That sounds tough.
Yeah, it will
does
be.
sound tough,
Mick was in the crowd last night as well, so he will be trying to exploit.
He will have seen. all the stuff
Especially
he saw.
seeing the way Bristol played and Cardiff didn't. Now it's a different case away from home, but to me there's a problem. There's an issue with the boys playing at home, but Ipswich is
I thought
going
at
to
home
be.
was the fortress. It was away.
I
that
don't
was
think
the
we've
problem.
built the fortress
I mean,
yet, mate. I
Ipswich
really
and
don't.
Ipswich and Leeds 13th and 17th. I mean, that sounds like two teams that are struggling. But you look at it and you think, oh God, Portman Road and then Ellen Road.
Kenwyn's out for Ipswich, definitely, probably Leeds. So you're going to be looking at where they're going to score goals from again. I mean, you wouldn't bet, if it was a betting man, get down and put it on 0-0 at Portman Road or something.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Well, you take that at the moment, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So
well, I mean that would look a good result, but that would make but only if you've beaten.
That would make
Bristol,
it 4 draws out of 5 in October, which isn't really good enough if you're serious about goals. Well, again, they're not conceding goals, they're not getting beaten, but this isn't what fans want to see, is it?
You don't know who gets excited about being hard to beat.
You've got 1-1.
Frankie, I used to love the side in 1960. They were so hard to beat. I had their picture on my wall. So they were brilliant.
I think playing that way, very defensively structured, then where the fullbacks don't go for it, you have to win those games. Those games at like Preston and Rotherham and like last night, you've got to win those games.
Yeah. Middlesbrough,
even if it's 1-0.
Draws, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because what happens is people look at the table and they go to work happy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They go to work happy. I don't worry about how we're playing. You know what I mean? We won again. We're third from the table. Everything's rosy. Do you know what I mean? But when you're not, you can only say, "Oh, picking up point. It might prove to be a great point at the end of the season." We can only say that for a couple of months.
That is the difference between last week and this week. Last week they got the late goal. Everyone went
No one's
happy.
going into work the next day going, "Hey, another clean sheet." Goodness me!
It does matter. You do build a team on keeping clean sheets and then
I know, but
finish forward. But we're not finishing forward. It hardly
sets the pulses rating.
We've been saying how long we've been saying Cardiff at the stage now where the momentum is going forward, and if they're not careful, they're gonna end up losing that momentum. Do you know what I mean? Because it is starting to die away now. And what's being highlighted, the lack of fans going in the home matches. So the momentum is just starting to die again. And that's why I said, going back 3 or 4 weeks, now is the time. When they come along, like when you got a player on fire, play him. When if you sign Amiobi, build his confidence, allow him to have 2 or 3 poor games. Allow him to have 3 or 4 missed major opportunities.
That's not what he's been allowed to do at all.
Because he starts to feel like, okay, I'm not being watched on every single. You have to learn it's the mind, mate.
I think Slade will feel like he made that mistake with Lafondra though, where he's played him, and it never worked.
Yeah, but there was other reasons behind why Lafondra wasn't happy. I'm not in the club, and I know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So iron him out.
He made it clear when he left.
Well, clearly, iron him out.
Yeah.
Speak to him. Have people you can speak to. Have people at the club you can go and speak to. Ooh, careful.
Yeah, so you are a
Blakey's angling for a job. Someone said to me, someone on the radio, you and Steve Tucker, you just want jobs down there.
Mate, I'll serve the burgers down there anytime. As long as I get some for
I've been told.
Okay, we're coming towards the end, so just hurry along a little bit. Ipswich Saturday, do you make wholesale changes or do you give them all?
You can't make wholesale changes, mate. You'll get beat. You can't make wholesale changes.
Well, personally, as I said, I expect Rolls to come back in and start
instead of
Gunnarsson.
Yeah, so it's back
to be honest.
But the Gashwe, do you think he'll be fit?
Oh right, I don't. I'll be honest. I don't know the extent of the Gashwe's injury, so that is a factor. Yeah, that would be the obvious one. Yeah.
So Ravel
will come
Ravel
back.
And Mason again.
Stuart O'Keefe, but I mean he's a bit.
Ravel and Mason again. Abiobi misses out again. Is or does he go?
I don't know. I just can't work out the Amiobi thing.
Well, he seems to fancy him away.
I don't see how you do that. Ah, man, that's so annoying. Like, I don't understand how you get a player who you know has bags of ability. Surely your job is to get that ability out of him as much as possible over the course of 90 minutes.
Was almost making those impacts off the bench, because you can see where Slade is thinking now. He's sort of thinking, every time he comes here, he says, look, well, I'll pick...
He's sort of a Kenwyn,
I'll pick them, and if we keep going, then I've got Amio, and I'll bring him on. So he's kind of like written his own part in the melodrama.
Football, don't they? Where they bring.
I don't get it. I don't get special teams,
written his own part.
Special teams. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, but surely if I seen a player who I've got on my books, and he comes and makes an impact like that, and then I play him 90 minutes and he doesn't have the same impact, And the reason being, from what I'm hearing, is because people going, well, he's just not fit enough. All I do is go and make him fitter and play him for, instead of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, then 40 minutes. And then I start him and play him 60 minutes, then 70 minutes, and then 80 minutes. And over the course of 10, 12 games, by the end of it, fitness cannot be no longer an issue. Yeah, and I've got a player who, listen, no player is going to provide you, like if there's 40 games in the season, you're going to play 40 brilliant games. But someone of Amiobi, you speak to him and you get into his head and you tell him, right, the reason why you're not at Newcastle is because this reason, this reason, this reason. Now, we're taking those reasons away. Now, it's down to you now. And if you don't perform over 10, 12 games, 14 games, 15 games, then I'll send you back and I'll go and look for another.
But don't ever say we didn't give you a chance.
But don't ever then turn around and say you never got the opportunity. Simple.
That's it. And he hasn't given himself that. So let's look ahead to Saturday, then we'll cover Tuesday next week. Ipswich, predictions?
Toughy.
0-0.
Toughy.
I've never predicted a 0-0 before.
There you go.
So 5-4 then, if I've predicted a 0-0.
I think we'll struggle down there. I think.
Well, history shows us that
and the lad what's the lad up front? From West Ham boy.
Oh, I don't know.
For Ipswich.
One of Cardiff wanted to sign.
Yeah. He was on loan at Colchester or something like that, wasn't he? One of them.
Blakey, don't highlight our ignorance, please.
No, what's his name? What's his name?
Don't highlight our
Freddie
ignorance.
Sears.
Oh, yeah.
Sears. I think he could cause our
I feel a negative prediction coming on here.
Yeah, I think we'll struggle. Down there.
Anything more specific than that?
I don't want to say
You can't go.
He's got all shy all of a sudden. He's got all shy.
How bad can this be?
We'll win 5-0. That's my prediction.
Okay, well, let's
so negative. Hang on, mate.
We'll win 5-0.
Let's hope Blakey's right with that one. And thanks for joining us once again. And look out for all the Cardiff City coverage right here on Wales Online throughout the week. Thank you very much.